Hello there guys, on this video we're going to be taking it step by step how to create your token using Tokens by Gen. So step number one, you need to create your token. So we're going to connect to BSC scan to do this. There is never any need for you to connect your wallet address to our website. So let's pop on over to the website. If we scroll on down, you'll see you've got two options. You can create a token with reflections or a token without reflections. So I'm going to go for a token that rewards my holders with reflections. So I'm going to click on the button to access BSC scan. And from here, we need to enter some information. So first of all, you've got to connect with your wallet. I'm on MetaMask, so I'm going to connect using MetaMask. And the only function you need to use is this one. So function number one, create token payment option. We need to enter all of this information. Now, with any of these functions, you've got to fill in all of the requested details before you can write the function. If you leave any of these blank, it's not going to work. So option number one, in here, we're going to enter the amount of BNB that you want to pay in order to create your token. So you've got two options. You can either pay up front and pay 1 BNB by entering a number 1, or you can pay nothing up front by entering a 0, and your actual token will have a 1% ongoing transaction fee. Now that's the option I'm going to go for. If you choose to do this, then you can remove that fee later if you want to, but it will cost you 2 BNB to remove it. So if you want to pay up front, 1 BNB. If you don't want to pay up front, then just put a 0 in this box and there'll be a 1% transaction fee in your contract. So next up, we have our token name. I'm going to call mine demo token, then our token symbol, and the amount of tokens that we'd like to create. So I'm going to create 1 million. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Number of decimals, I'm going to put 4. Some people have 18 decimals, which is just crazy. 4's plenty. Now we need the wallet address that's going to be the owner of this token. Now we're going to deploy the token into that wallet. So that wallet will have 100% supply. That wallet needs to add liquidity. It needs to set up the contract. It's the only wallet that can access the functions. And if you're doing a pre-sale, it's this wallet that needs to set up the pre-sale as well. So it's kind of the wallet that's used for everything. It's got very special privileges. So I'm going to grab my wallet address from MetaMask and I'm going to pop it into this box. Now the last box, you might not have a discount code, but as I said before, we cannot leave this blank. We wouldn't be able to create the token. So you've got to put something in here. If you don't have a discount code, then enter your wallet address for the owner wallet again into the box. If you do have a discount code, then you get a 10% refund on the payment that you make to create the token. So you make the payment, it all goes through, and then we send 10% of that money back to you. Also, if you opted for the 1% ongoing fee as opposed to paying up front, then similarly, we actually give you 10% of that fee back when we process it. So it gives you a bit of a discount. If you don't have one and you want one, then pop into our community group and there'll be somebody in there that's got a discount code they can share with you. It has to be a valid wallet address. So if you haven't got one, then just pop in your own wallet address. So now we're going to make the token. It's going to cost maybe about 0.05. It's 0.06 today, so it changes depending on how busy the blockchain is. Sometimes it's more expensive, but it's usually around this amount. If you opted to pay the 1 BNB up front, then you'd also have the 1 BNB to pay at this stage. So I'm going to confirm this, and once the transaction's gone through, I'm going to click on where it says view your transaction. So this is the transaction. As you can see, it's still mining at the moment, but we need this page in just a sec. So let's get back over to our step-by-step guide. So we've done all of this. We connected to BSC. We entered the details. We also entered a discount code, which is required. We didn't have one, so we entered our wallet address. Now we can move on to step 2, which is getting the contract address of your token. Very, very important. You need to grab this and copy and paste it somewhere safe. So this is the transaction. It's gone through now, it's complete. Now the way that you can tell if the transaction is completely mined into the blockchain is up here where it says overview. You want this internal transactions, logs and comments. If you can't see this, then you need to wait and just refresh the page. It could take a little bit longer depending on how busy the blockchain is. However, once it's completely mined, you should be looking at a page like this. So keep refreshing until you get something like this. And you want to click on the name of your token. So click on that. And on the next page, click on where it says contract. And on the next page, I want you to click on where it says contract at the bottom here. And then click on where it says write contract here. Now, these are all the functions that we've got access to on our contracts. Now, you might not see this. You might see like a yellow box that says it cannot find the contract ABI. If you see that, all you've got to do is wait. Just give it a bit of time, maybe go away for 45 minutes, come back, refresh the page, and it should then look like this. There's nothing else you can do. It's just down to blockchain traffic and lag. On very, very rare situations, it can take a very long time. I've had one of these take 2 days. So if you do have a problem, if you can't see the functions, just give it some time and come back. It's usually instant. I would say probably about 95% of the time, it happens instantly. So now that we're on this page, up here, this is your contract address. So click on the button to copy it and save that somewhere. And in the actual URL of your browser, you can see that it ends with write contract. So that address brings you directly back to this page. I'd also recommend that you copy that address and save it somewhere because this is the page that you need to be on to interact with your contract. So when you want to interact with your contract, you need to connect to Web3 using the owner wallet that you set up when you deployed the contract. So make sure you're in the correct wallet in your MetaMask before you connect. So that is step 2. We've saved our contract address and the right page from the URL. The next step is to set up your contract. So we're going to connect to Web3, making sure we're on the owner wallet. There we are. If you're not on the owner wallet, it will still allow you to connect, but when you try and use the functions, they won't work. So if it doesn't work for you, go into your MetaMask and make sure you're connected to the owner wallet and make sure that's also the one that's in here. Because sometimes you connect on BSC with one wallet, but you're actually in a different one up here. So if you change your wallet, when you're interacting with your MetaMask, make sure that you go back to the owner. So these are the functions that we need to use to set up the token. Number 1, do we want the token to have a deflationary burn? So by default, this one is set to false. Now, if you need to enter true or false, it has to be in lowercase. So if you want to change this to true, we type this. Typing this is not the same. In Solidity language, true and false must be in lowercase. You can't put a 1 or a 0 like you can in some languages. It has to be true or false, and it has to be lowercase. Now, because the default is false, and I want this token not to be deflationary, I'm going to leave that as false. I will give you a little bit of a word of warning here. Most tokens, I would guess over 99% of tokens, are not deflationary, but also, most tokens tell you that they are deflationary. It's just that the developers and the teams behind them don't understand what this means. On a normal token, when you send tokens to the burn wallet, which is the wallet with all the zeros and the word dead at the end, that wallet simply becomes a holder of your token. It doesn't affect the token in any way. The price doesn't go up for everybody else. It's just that you have this special wallet holding tokens. Now, the only advantage to that is that the burn wallet can never sell those tokens. So it kind of creates a bit of a price floor. If everybody else sells, the burn wallet will always be holding. And you'll see on BSC scan, when you look at your holder list, that that wallet address is in there. It becomes a holder. So that's normal. That's what most contracts do, and that is not deflationary. That's the same with your contract. That's the way it's working by default. Now, if you want your contract to be deflationary, then rather than the the burn address being a holder, when we send tokens to the burn address, they never arrive at that wallet address. It doesn't become a holder. We simply destroy those tokens completely and we remove them from the total supply. So if you were to type true in here and click on the button, when you burn tokens, you would see that your total supply is going down, but the burn wallet isn't a holder, because obviously we have to make sure that the accumulative value of all of the holders is the same as your total supply. So we can't give them to the burn wallet and also remove them from the total. Now that makes your token truly deflationary. It doesn't really have a massive impact on the price of tokens people are already holding. It doesn't affect that, but it does make your token a lot more stable. It helps with your liquidity, and it is a very good thing for your project. I think more than anything else, it's quite a psychological thing. If people know your token is deflationary, they get a little bit excited about it, and that's easy to sell, so it's good for your marketing. But another word of caution, most of the tools out there, like listing sites, token checkers, those kind of things, they don't understand truly deflationary tokens. So you might stumble into some issues regarding your total supply on those platforms. But if you understand how this works and you know that you want your token to be deflationary, pop true and click on the button to change this to a deflationary token. Right, the next option, this by default is set to true, which means there is no fee during wallet transfer. So this means if I've got some tokens and I want to spread them around in my various wallets so that I've got half them in one wallet and half them in another, there's going to be no fee for me to do that. Or if I buy some tokens and I want to gift them to you, I can send them to your wallet and there would not be a fee. Now you would imagine that that's pretty standard, but it isn't. Most tokens actually charge the same fee when you move tokens from one wallet to another as they charge when you buy or sell tokens. So in most situations, you buy a token, you get taxed. You try to move them to another wallet, you get taxed again, and when you sell them, you get taxed. I don't think that is fair. So the way I've created this contract is that there is no fee when you're moving tokens between wallets. There's only a fee when you're buying and selling. Now this actually opens up a lot of possibilities for use cases where your token is being used for a payment in place of fiat. So it's a really valuable thing for you to have. However, if you wanted to renounce your contract, which I really don't recommend, but if you decide that you do want to renounce your contract, then this really isn't compatible with having no fee on transferring tokens between wallets. It opens you up to a potential exploit. So if you do want to renounce your contract, then before you do that, change this to false and click on the button. But in most cases, I would recommend leaving this on true. So number 3, setting up the fees on the buy. So this is the fees that people will pay when they buy the token. Now I have hard coded a limit into this to protect your buyers. The maximum fee possible on a buy or on a sell is 20%. Now you can't go over that 20%, you can go up to it, but do bear in mind that I opted to pay no money for this contract up front. So there is a 1% transaction fee on the buy and on the sell. So we've got to factor that in. So if I enter numbers in here and it adds up to 20, the total would actually be 21, which is over the limit. So I'll show you that in a moment. But first of all, let's pop some numbers in. So the first fee is BNB on buy. Now you can think of this as your marketing wallet. It's going to take the fee, transfer it from tokens into BNB, so it needs to sell the tokens to do that. It doesn't happen on every transaction, it kind of saves them up, and it does them about every 10th transaction, otherwise it'd just be spending too much gas, and it does put a red candle on the chart when it does it, so we don't want it happening all the time. But when it does kick in, it will change the tokens into BNB, and it will send them to an external wallet that you control. Now you will then use that money for marketing or paying your team or whatever it might be. Now, because it's up to you how you use that money because it's your project, I didn't call this a marketing wallet, which is what most people call it, because you might not be spending all of the money on marketing. So just disclose on your website how you're spending this money. So I'm going to say that 2% of every transaction goes towards my BNB wallet, and I'm going to spend it all on my marketing. The next one is perhaps the most important. This is your automatic liquidity. Most people set this too low. You want to go quite high on this, especially at the beginning of your project. You can reduce it later, but at the beginning, when there's not many holders, your project is very vulnerable to price impact. So you want to be getting as much liquidity in there as possible to help raise the price floor, keep your tokens stable, and reduce price impact when people sell. So I'm going to put this on 8%. So that's 10 total so far. Reflections is a reward that you pay to your existing holders in your token when other people buy or sell your token. Now on the buy, I'm going to put this at 0 because if a holder's holding tokens and other people buy, they're going to see their value going up because the price has gone up. So that keeps them happy anyway. But I'm going to put some reflections on the sell because this means when people are selling tokens, it's going to encourage the holders to hold, because even though people are selling, the price is going down, they're getting more tokens added to their wallet. So that's a real incentive for them to hold, even though the token's being sold by other people. And then when the token recovers to where it was before, they'll have more value because they've got more tokens. So I think it's a really good idea to put reflections on the sell. I don't think they're necessary on the buy. I think that's a bit of a waste, and you can put that money elsewhere. So burning, if you want to burn part of your supply on each transaction on your token, if it's deflationary, it will be removing those tokens from the total supply. If your token is not deflationary, it will just be adding them to the burn address. Now I will say, there's something that a lot of people call the black hole. You've probably come across it. It's used for marketing purposes on a token. The idea is you've got tokens sitting in the burn wallet, and on every transaction you add more tokens to it, it increases in size, and the burn wallet also gets reflections. So the bigger the burn wallet is, the more reflections it gets, the bigger it grows, and they say this adds value to your wallet because if tokens are in the burn wallet, the price of the tokens you've got go up. And you've probably seen that. You might even hold tokens that talk about this idea of a black hole. It is absolute nonsense. The people that are promoting this idea just simply do not understand how the burn wallet works. If the burn wallet is holding tokens and it's also receiving reflections, then it's increasing in size. And the only thing that's happening here is that the burn wallet is taking a large portion of the reflection rewards, which means there is less for everybody else. That's the only impact it has on other holders. So it doesn't benefit them in any way at all. It's actually detrimental because it's taking away some of the reward, which would otherwise be allocated to the genuine holders. So it's for this reason that the burn wallet address is automatically excluded from reflection rewards on your contract, and don't include it in reflection rewards because it would simply be taking away from other people. And if you are in a token that is promoting the idea of a black hole, and that's the way that they're doing it, they simply do not understand how that works. It doesn't help people in any way. It's actually detrimental to the project. But there are a huge number of devs out there that tell you that their tokens do things that they don't understand. Now, common sense would kind of cause you to think that a token works the way they think it works. But common sense isn't enough. That's not the way the code works, and they've obviously not tested it. So those tokens that talk about the idea of a black hole, they simply didn't test it. They assumed it worked in a certain way. It doesn't work that way. They've not tested it, and they're using it as a promotion. So we're not going to burn any tokens, so I'm going to pop in a 0. So tokens on buy, this is very similar to a marketing wallet, but rather than getting BNB, you're getting the native token. Now there's a few advantages for this. First of all, tokens are useful. You can use them for things like staking platforms, that kind of stuff. You can use them to add additional liquidity pairs or to list your token on a new exchange, or you can pay team members with tokens or use them for giveaways. So tokens are really, really useful to have. So I recommend that you seriously consider putting a fee into this section. It's also good because when it sends it to a wallet in tokens, it doesn't have to sell them for BNB. So this doesn't put a red candle on the chart. This one up here, it does put a red candle on the chart because that's swapping to BNB. And also this one swaps half of that amount to BNB. So that also adds a red candle on the chart. But we actually combine these two things together. So you get one contract sell rather than two. But on this one here, obviously that doesn't need to swap tokens, so there's no contract sale with that whatsoever. So we've got 10% so far. So if I put a 10 in here, you would think that is 20%, which is the maximum permitted. But you'll see if I try to write this, we're going to get an error. So this error here, this is like a default way that MetaMask will show you an error. It says, if you want to proceed anyway, click on this link and you'd have to pay this crazy amount of gas and it still won't work. MetaMask don't know what the error is. They just do this by default. So if you ever see this, just reject it. It just takes your gas and it still will not work. The reason that that error occurred is because all of these numbers added together equal 20, plus the 1% that is the contract fee because we didn't pay our 1 BNB up front equals 21. So 21 is over our limit. So if we change this to a 9, then you will see that we don't get the error because the total now, including the transaction, the fee for the contract is 20. So we could confirm this and set our fees at 20%. I think 20% fees is crazy high. I would never set my fees that high. I think you want to aim for about 9%. Now on some contracts checking tools like Token Sniffer for instance, they're checking to see if your fees are below 10%. And if they are, you kind of like get a green tick. And if they're over 10%, you get a red cross. But I'd always recommend keeping them below 10%. Now bear in mind, these are the fees on the buy. You're going to have the same fees on the sell as well. So when a person buys tokens and sells them, collectively they're losing 18% if you add 9% on a buy and a sell. So I'd recommend not really going too much higher than that. There are tokens. SafeMoon, for instance, the original had 12% fee. So 12% on buy and sell, that's 24%. And that is quite common. But I think that's a bit extreme, but you can, as an absolute maximum, you can set your buy fees to 20% and your sell fees to 20%, which obviously would be someone losing 40% overall. But I recommend trying to keep this below 10. So we've got 2, we've got 8, we're going to have a 0 in here. That's 10% plus our 1% is 11. So if I did something similar on the sell, then we'd be looking at 22% overall. So I'm going to write this and confirm. Now I'm going to do it a little bit different on the selling fees because I want to put some reflections on the selling fees. So I'm going to keep my marketing. I'm going to reduce my liquidity a little bit. So it's 6 rather than 8. And I'm going to put that 2% into my reflection because, as I said before, if people are getting a reward for holding when other people sell, it's going to encourage people to hold when the chart's going down because psychologically they're thinking, even though the price is going down, it will probably recover. And when it recovers, I'll have more tokens. So that's a little bit of a bonus. So we've got the same amount overall. Now, a lot of people set higher sell fees than buy fees to encourage people to hold. I'm not really a big fan of that. I believe that if a person has bought tokens, they own them. If they want to pay money and buy them, then by all means do so. And I think they own those tokens and we shouldn't kind of restrict them in any way when they want to sell them. So I'm a firm believer in not penalising people for selling. I don't believe investing tokens, holding them, having any kind of restriction, having increased fees on sales or anything like that. But one of the really useful things about setting your buy fees and your sell fees separately is that it enables you to do a bit of a promotion. So you could say, you could change your buy fees all to 0 if you wanted to, and say, you know, for Black Friday, we're having a special sale where you can buy tokens without paying a fee, whilst at the same time not automatically affecting your sell fees. So, you know, loads of people don't dump, taking advantage of no tax. So I think it's a really cool thing to lower your buy fee as an incentive to encourage people to buy because you're doing a promotion, as opposed to raising your sell fee to try and penalise people so they don't sell. I mean, they're going to sell eventually anyway, and if you're preventing them from selling, they'll probably hold longer, and if your token's going up in price, they'll end up taking more money out of your project. Just let them sell. Some people buy and hold, some people buy and try and turn a quick profit. Let people do whatever they do. When people sell, usually other people are going to come along and they're going to buy up the dip. So I'm a firm believer in just keeping these things natural. Next thing we want to set is our wallet limits. Now, on quite a few contracts, the way that you set limits is to enter a percent. So if you wanted to have your wallet limits at 2%, you'd pop in a number 2. That's not the way this contract works. That is quite restrictive, and I want to give you a lot more flexibility. So you actually enter in a specific number of tokens. So our maximum supply was 1 million tokens. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put this at 2%, which would be, if I delete 2 zeros, that's 10,000 tokens would be 1%, and if I double it, that would be 2%. So I'm going to pop that amount in for the maximum transaction, so that's the maximum number of tokens a person can buy in one transaction, and I'm also going to put it in for the maximum total that a wallet can hold. Now, I'm going to tell you right now that in a moment when I deploy this contract and I add my liquidity, I don't have 1 BNB in this wallet, so I'm going to be adding just a tiny amount of liquidity, and because of those limitations, we will not get a trade button on PooCoin because they do a very specific test, and these limitations mean that they won't be able to do their test. They actually try to buy and sell 0.01 of a BNB. Now, honeypot.io, they do the same test, but they try and buy and sell 0.1 BNB of your token. And if they can't do that, they flag your token as a honeypot, which is absolutely ridiculous. Because if you put 1 BNB into your initial liquidity, then your transaction limit would have to be 10% of your token, which is crazy, in order for you to pass that honeypot test. Now, there is a little bit of a way around this because when people start buying your token, it very quickly goes up in price. So most tokens, although most people don't realize this, most tokens when they're initially deployed flag as a honeypot until some people start to buy the token and the price goes up. It will continue to flag as a honeypot until the honeypot tool can buy and sell in a simulation 0.1 BNB. So if you can't do that, because the maximum transaction permitted costs less than that amount of money, you're going to flag as a honeypot. And it's the same thing on PooCoin. You're not going to get your trade button unless PooCoin are able to do a transaction of of 0.01 BNB. If they can't do that transaction because it means that there would be too many tokens, they will deactivate your trade button. So that is going to happen, but is something I want you to see. And then I'll come in and I'll change these transaction limits to enable them to buy and sell 0.01 BNB, and you'll see that we'll get our trade button. But this is what I'd set mine to because that's 2% of my supply. So confirm. So if I was going to add 1 BNB into my token, that means that 2% of my supply would cost 0.02 BNB, which is adequate for PooCoin's test. So if we add 1 BNB, we'll pass to PooCoin's test. I'm not going to. I'm going to add 0.1 BNB, and we will fail PooCoin's test because of this. So I'll show you that when we deploy the token. So the next thing, we're going to set our wallets. So this is kind of optional. We have the wallet that receives the tokens, where that's the tokens from the fee that I said are very useful for giveaways and staking platforms and things. We have the wallet that receives the BNB that would normally be called a marketing wallet. And we also have the wallet that will receive a token that represents your liquidity when your contract adds auto liquidity. That token is called Cake LP. In a moment, when we add our liquidity to the token, we're going to be getting some Cake LP added to our wallet. And we need to lock that on like a token locker in order to make our tokens safe for our investors. Now, I'm going to leave these as the defaults. At the moment, the wallet address that you entered as the owner of your token is also the same wallet that's used for these three particular functions. But if you want to change them, then you can change these. So perhaps if you've got a member of your team that's in charge of your marketing and you want them to be able to spend the marketing money, but you don't want them to have access to the contract functions, then you could put the wallet address that they're going to use into here, and the BNB for the marketing will automatically go to that wallet, and they're going to be able to use it even though they don't have access to the owner wallet. Now, if you do want to change any of these, you need to enter a value into all three of the options in order to write the function. So if you were going to change just the BNB wallet, like the marketing wallet, pop the new wallet address in here and put the existing owner wallet address into the other two so that you can write the function. I'm happy with them all staying as the owner. This is only a demonstration, but if this was my token, I would be in control of everything anyway. So you might want to leave this as the default. The next one, this is something that you can enter your information now, but you are going to have to come back to this later. So pop in your website address. So my website is http://www.gentokens.com. So pop in your website. I don't have a liquidity locker URL yet because I've not actually deployed my token, so I've not added liquidity, so I don't have a locker for it. So I'm going to put my website address into this box as well because we need to put something into all three boxes. I do have a Telegram, but just for the sake of speed, I'm going to pop in this into here, which is not my Telegram, but just so you can see how it works. And I'm also going to do this as well, just so you can see where these things are shown. Now, the real reason that we're doing this is because it enables people to find your project. So they can find you, they can join your community, whereas otherwise, if they found your token just on BSC scan or on some listing website, they might not have access to who you are. So this means that your website address, your Telegram and your liquidity locker are going to be displayed on BSC scan. They'll be able to find it in the read contract page. So anyone that wants to invest in your token can actually find you and find out information about you. So it's very, very important to put that information in there. So we're going to confirm this. But obviously when we get our liquidity locker, we're going to come back and we're going to update the locker URL so that people can actually go and check it. So that is all of the things that we need to do to set up your actual contract. So the next step is optional, and this is creating your pre-sale. Now, if you are doing a pre-sale, I recommend that you go with Pink Sale. I'm verified with Pink Sale as a docs developer, and I trust their services. I think they provide everything that you need, and your contract will work with Pink Sale. And I've also made it very, very easy for you to do this. So I'm not going to go through the actual process of setting up your pre-sale on their website. Go over to their website and follow their instructions to do that. It might change, so there's no point in me going through it and then it being different and me having to update everything. Just go and follow the information they have. If you've got any questions at all about setting up your pre-sale on Pink Sale, then join their Telegram group and ask them directly. Don't direct questions about their platform to Tokens by Gen because we don't have any access to their platform, so we can't do anything at their end. So what we're going to do here, when you set up your pre-sale, they will give you an address that represents the pre-sale contract, and that address needs special privileges. So when you get it, you need to enter that address into this box and click on the button, and obviously you'll have to pay a little bit of gas. Now what that does is it gives their pre-sale contract pre-launch access, which means they can interact with tokens before trade is open. It also removes any fees or any transaction or holding limits. So all of those things are incredibly important for them to be able to do the pre-sale for you. So when they give you the address, just pop it into this box and click on write, and that's going to set up their pre-sale contract so that it can interact with your token even before you've opened trade. So obviously that's something that you might not need to do, but the next step as part of your setting up your token is blacklisting bots. Now, this moves us on to step number 5. Blacklisting bots is something that is not compatible with doing a pre-sale, and it's also something you don't really need when you're doing a pre-sale. It's something that you need if you're doing a fair launch or a stealth launch, because you don't want someone to snipe and get the cheapest price. But when you're doing a pre-sale, the price is set. Everybody that's buying your token on a pre-sale is paying the same price for those tokens. You set what that price is. So that's something you don't have to worry about. But if you're doing a fair launch or if you're doing a stealth launch yourself, then you want to make sure that you're blocking some bots. Now, we do also have some snipe protection in your contract, but you might also want to block bots. So if you're doing that, just pop in the wallet address of the bot in here and change it to true. If you want to unblock somebody that you've previously blocked by mistake, pop in the wallet address and set it to false. Now, you cannot set a wallet address to a bot, like saying it to true, after you open trade. This is something that you can only do before you open trade. Now, there are some platforms, PinkSale is one of them, that will do the launch for you. Now, unfortunately, even if you're doing a fair launch on one of those platforms, it's using their contract, not yours. So you can't go and block bots on your contract because people would be buying through their contract. So these things are just not compatible. Now, if you are doing a pre-sale, we did say it's not compatible with blocking bots, but it can also cause quite a serious issue. If you were to blacklist a wallet address, and then that person was to buy your token on a pre-sale from a pre-sale platform like PinkSale, when PinkSale tried to finalize your sale and send everybody their tokens, they wouldn't be able to send that person any tokens because that person is blacklisted. So your contract won't allow you to send tokens to that person. Now, because all of this is done in one transaction, the entire transaction would fail. So if you've blacklisted someone who has purchased tokens on a pre-sale, you will not be able to finalize your pre-sale. The two things are simply not compatible. The main reason for blacklisting somebody is because you don't want them to snipe your contract. If you're doing a pre-sale, that really doesn't matter, but we do also have sniper bot protection anyway, that I'm going to talk about in just a second. So, the next thing is something that's very, very unique to our tokens, and this is setting up some specific limits that only apply to your launch. Now, we have something called a launch phase, and it lasts for 5 minutes. And during those 5 minutes, we have our token set up a little bit differently to help make it fair for your initial investors. So when we created our limits, we set our transaction holding limits to 2% of supply. So we're allowing people to buy in one transaction 2% of our supply, and that's the maximum a person can buy. So if the very first person to buy tokens buys a max wallet, they've got a full wallet at the cheapest price. And that's not really very fair on everybody else. So we've got a couple of things we can do to help spread the cost out a little bit. So during the launch phase, we can set a maximum transaction limit that is lower than the one that we've got set for our token. So we've got 20,000 tokens, which is 2% of supply, as our normal transaction limit. So if I halve this and say 10,000 tokens, that's 1% of supply. So they'd have to do this twice to get a maximum wallet. Now here we can set a delay timer, which is a period of time that they need to wait after buying tokens on one wallet before they can buy again. So if I set this to 20 seconds, That means that a person can buy 1% of supply, but they've got to wait 20 seconds before they can buy another 1% of supply and top up to a max wallet. Now, during those 20 seconds, other people that weren't quite so fast are going to be able to buy their tokens. So everyone gets a chance of getting some cheap tokens, and we haven't got one person getting a max wallet for the cheapest price possible. Now, the default amount of time that this lasts for is 5 minutes. If you want to change it, you can. If you want to keep it the same, you still need to enter the number 5 into here because we need to have all of these boxes filled in. Now, I'm not going to use the launch phase on this token. I don't want to. If you don't want to use it, then the way that you deactivate all these things, set your timer to 0, set your launch transaction limit to the same as whatever your other limit is, and set the launch phrase length to 0 as well. So that's the way that you'd kind of not use this feature. But if you want to use it, it helps your token to be fair because it spreads out the cost for people at the beginning. I'd recommend not having any longer than 5 minutes on your launch phase. At the end of the launch phase, the contract, there's no way that a contract can say, oh, 5 minutes have elapsed, let's turn that thing off. Because contracts don't actually do anything until someone interacts with them. But after the 5 minutes, the next person that buys or sells a token, that will kick the token into action and it will get it to check this timer. It will have a look at the timer and it will say, oh, the launch phase has ended, and at this stage it would put the token back to your normal settings. So that's the way that it kind of turns itself off. It's all fully automated, but it has to be a transaction that kicks it in. So for instance, if you've gone 20 minutes and nobody's bought or sold your token yet, you're still in your launch phase. But the very next person that interacts by buying or selling a token, that would get the actual contract to realize that the launch phase has ended, and then you'd go on to your normal settings. So I'm going to click on this to say to process that through. Now there is one other thing actually I do need to mention here. We've got automatic protection on your contract for bots, and this will detect someone who is trying to buy in the very first few seconds of your token. It will allow them to buy, but only a very tiny amount. So they can buy up to 0.01% of your token. We then tag them as a bot, and we restrict them from being able to buy again until your launch phase has ended. Now that's a really cool feature. You want this in your contract. So rather than setting this to 0, I would recommend that you set this to at least 1 minute, so that during that period of time you are identifying bots and restricting them and preventing them from buying again within that launch phase period, so that they can't snatch up loads of tokens. So if you just want to have the sniper protection in there, then set these settings. No seconds, whatever your transaction limit is, and just 1 minute, so that it enables the contract to detect people that are using these bots and restrict them in some way. We do allow them to buy, as I said, it's only a tiny amount, but we need to let them buy in order to identify them as a bot so that we can prevent them from buying again. So they're the settings that I'm going to go with, and I'm going to confirm this. And we've done that one. So the next thing that we need to do is to add our initial liquidity. Now the initial liquidity needs to be in BNB. Even if you want your token paired with some other currency, we're on Binance Smart Chain, you have to be paired with BNB for several things to work correctly. We need it for your auto liquidity to work, but also quite a lot of token tools out there like Token Sniffer, those kind of things that check the credibility of your token. They will not recognize a non-native liquidity pair. So if you don't have a BNB pairing, most of those tools will say that your contract is a scam. And a lot of people use those tools, so you've got to go with BNB. If you want to add a different one later, you can do so. So we're going to add our liquidity on PancakeSwap. It's got to be a minimum of 1 BNB, but I don't have 1 BNB, and this is just a demonstration. So I'm going to add 0.1 BNB. And because of this, I'm not going to get a trade button on PooCoin, but I am going to do something else to get my trade button back. I'm going to increase my maximum transaction, but obviously these are things that you wouldn't need to do. We're then going to lock our liquidity on dx.app, and we're going to update our socials with our liquidity locker address. So if I pop back over, so we're done here for the time being, but we still need to open trade after we've added liquidity. So we're going to have to come back to this in just a sec. So we're going to go over to PancakeSwap. We're going to connect with our wallet. Make sure it's your owner wallet, which is holding the token. I'm connecting via MetaMask. And then at the moment, the liquidity page is in the trade menu and then liquidity. But I don't think that is very intuitive. So I expect that at some point in the future, they might change their website around. So just have a look around the website. You're looking for the page, which is liquidity, and then click on the blue button down here that says add liquidity. You won't see any of this. This is simply the liquidity tokens that are currently inside this particular wallet. So I'm going to add liquidity, and we need to add a pairing of BNB and your token. So we need to change this one from cake to your token. So BNB is already selected over on this side. If it isn't, then just click on it and select BNB. And we need your contract address in here. Now you should have saved your contract address from earlier, so you'll have that. I didn't bookmark it anywhere, but I do have it up here in the URL. So I'm going to copy this to my clipboard, and I'm going to go over here and I'm going to paste that into this box. And you can see this is our token, demo token. We're going to import it, and we're going to say, yes, we understand, and import. So the next stage is to actually add the tokens and add the BNB. But wait for this yellow box to appear. It came instantly for us, but sometimes it takes a few minutes for that box to pop up. Wait for it, because if the box isn't there and you continue, it just goes wrong and you have to start again. So first of all, our BNB. As I said, I don't have one BNB, so I can't do that, but I'm going to put in 0.1. Sometimes when you click out of this box, this changes back to 0. So keep an eye on it. Okay, we were fine this time. Just make sure that you keep an eye on this. This is usually like so. It's only on that because I've just used this previously. But we're going to put in all of the supply. Now, depending on your particular project and what your plans are with your token, you might be only putting in a percentage of your supply. I recommend putting in 100% because it makes your token a lot more stable, especially in the initial stages. If you wanted to hold 10% of your token back, maybe allocating those for team members or something, then I'd recommend adding 100%, and then before you open trade, you can buy the token on PancakeSwap using the owner wallet. It's the only wallet that can buy the token before trade is open. So buy at market value. It won't cost you very much money. Those tokens back that you want to allocate to your team. Tell your community that you've done this. Be very transparent about it. Show them what you're doing, because there's a few advantages for this. First of all, it means that all of the tokens have been paid for, so when your team members sell them, your chart's not going to go negative. But also, it increases the price of the token, and that's going to deter any snipers from trying to snipe your contract, because the price has already gone up. The sniper bots are going to be looking at it. They will see that somebody's bought tokens, and they won't buy any, because if you sell, they lose. So it really protects your actual contract from the snipers. So I strongly recommend that you add 100% of the tokens, and if you need some tokens for something to do with your project, just buy them back. It really won't cost you much money, but it's a really good thing for your token's health. It protects it, and it also looks really good. It looks good to your future token investors because every token's been paid for. It's a great thing. So that's what I recommend that you would do. And obviously, it makes your token a hell of a lot more stable as well during the initial phases of your token's growth. So there we go. We've got our BNB in. Yours needs to be a minimum of 1 BNB. If you put less than 1 BNB, you're going to run into problems. It's going to cause real serious issues with gas. It's going to say that your token transaction taxes are much higher than they really are. because people are restricted. They can only pay a tiny bit of money, yet the contract still needs to do processing that requires gas. So their slippage will have to be crazy high. There's a good chance that transactions won't go through. You're just going to have a lot of issues if you're less than 1 BNB, and you absolutely shouldn't be making a token if you've not got more than 1 BNB to put into your initial liquidity pool. So that's what I'm going to go with, but obviously this is only a demonstration, so I'm just showing you basically the process to follow, but definitely more than 1 BNB up here. So I'm going to enable my token, so we're going to have to confirm this, and then the enable button will come back, so we just need to wait until that goes away and we get the supply button. So don't click enable again, you just have to wait. Now we've got supply, so we're going to supply our initial liquidity and confirm. Now click on add CakeLP to wallet, and these are the tokens that represent your liquidity, and we're going to lock these tokens over on DX, which makes your token safer for your investors. And then we close. So we've now added our liquidity. So at this stage, I'm going to grab our contract address, and I'm going to pop on over to PooCoin, whoops, and paste that in. So we can see our token. So you can see we've got our token. We haven't got a trade button. That's been disabled because trade is not open. But we do have our initial liquidity, which is 0.1 BNB. So that's inside there. I'll show you a really quick way that you can get your liquidity address. If you click on where it says holders, then up here in the actual URL, that there is the address of your liquidity token that represents the pairing of your token and BNB. So we're going to be needing that address when we decide to lock our liquidity tokens. So actually I'll show you where that is now. So I'll copy that address, go over to dx.app, click on DX lock, click on lock LP tokens, and paste the address into this box. And it will detect them in your wallet. We can see that we've got them inside of our wallet, and then you click on here to choose how long you want to lock them for. I'd recommend about 6 months. I'm just going to click on this just to get something in there. You don't have to enter anything here. You can enter this later, but it's the actual the address of your token logo so that they can display it with your locker, but you can add that later. Inside here, you add the number of tokens that you want to lock. I recommend just using this slider and slide it up so that it says 100% of them. It's a really, really, really tiny number, but those are the tokens that are called CakeLP that were just given to you by PancakeSwap. And then you would now click on approve and you would lock the tokens. I'm not going to do that because this is only a demonstration and I want to remove the liquidity on this token to get that little bit of money back, because this isn't a token that people are going to be buying or selling. But once you do approve and you actually create the locker, you get the actual the address up here of your locker, and then you would share that with your community, and you'd also come back over to your contract itself. And on that function earlier, where's it gone? Update socials, number 7. You would then enter into here your liquidity locker into this one. You have to make sure you also put your website and your Telegram group in here because you need all 3 boxes with information in. And then you'd write this and it would add your liquidity locker. Now the place where people can see this information is here. So if I click on this read contract page and I click on token information, I click on query, you can see that there's information here about our token name, the symbol, the number of decimals, the owner wallet, the maximum transaction and the transaction maximum holding limit, the number, the transaction fee for buying and selling, then all of your socials for your website, your Telegram and your liquidity locker. And then a link back to Tokens by Gen, which is where you created your token. So that information is incredibly useful for people that don't know who you are, but they have purchased your token, so they can access those details to get to you. So we're going to go back over to the right page, and we've added our initial liquidity, which is now in there. So our token is ready, but trade is not open. However, you could buy this token on your wallet. Nobody else can buy it, but if I grab the contract address again and I go over to swap, and I change this to our token, like so, then you can see that over here we can do a trade. Now on PooCoin we can't. Trade button is deactivated. But if I wanted to buy some tokens here, I'll just buy 100. Because I'm on the owner wallet, I can do this. No other wallet will be able to do this transaction, only me. I'll just confirm. So if you wanted to buy some tokens before trade is open, it will increase the price. And then if you were going to, allocate those tokens to your team or whatever, like we mentioned earlier, it's a really great way of deterring bots from sniping your contract, because they're not going to buy a token if they think it can be sold. So we've just bought before trade is open, before any bots can even get a sniff at this. I think it's a really, really great thing to do. So if I pop on over to the chart, you'll see, there we go, 100 tokens, which cost me less than this amount. It was a tiny, tiny amount of BNB, so it's not even registering. But there's our transaction. So that's our owner wallet actually buying tokens before trade is open. So no other wallet can do that, and the trade button is deactivated on PooCoin. So if we pop back over to our steps, we've done all of these. Next up, we open trade. Now, normally, when you open trade, you will get your trade button, but we won't. And the reason we're not going to get the trade button is because of that test I mentioned earlier. Because we've only got a very tiny amount of BNB in our liquidity, if PooCoin tried to buy the 0.01 BNB worth of tokens that they need to do for their test, that's going to be more tokens than our maximum transaction allows. So that actual trade would fail. So I'm going to open trade. So where are we? That's on this one. Let's close some of these up so we can see where we are more clearly. So number 11, open trade. All you got to do is click on the button. That's all it is. If you get some sort of weird error come up here, make sure you're still connected to Web3 and you're still logged into the correct wallet. So I'm going to confirm. So now our trade is open, and under normal circumstances on PooCoin, when we refresh the page, we would get our trade button over here, but it's still actually deactivated simply because our contract is too restrictive, because our liquidity is too low. So because we've got 0.1 BNB in our liquidity, in order for PooCoin to do their 0.01 test, they're going to have to try and buy and sell 10% of our supply. So I'm going to change our transaction limits, wallet limits. I'm going to change this to 10% of our supply, which in our case would be 1 and 5 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. And this should enable PooCoin to do their test. So we should, when that goes through, get our trade button. Now, also, what I think I mentioned it earlier, honeypot.io do the same test, but on 0.1 BNB, which is a crazy amount. But do not increase your transaction limits to try and meet these restrictions, because you don't want anybody buying 10% of your supply. The way around this is simply to have enough BNB in your initial liquidity. 0.1's nowhere near enough. You need an absolute minimum of 1 BNB. So if I refresh this now, we should get our trade button. Still not got it yet. It might be just on the threshold, so we'll try increasing it a little bit more. I'm going to put it at max, because then we'll definitely get it. But actually, the thing I've neglected is our launch phase. Our launch phase limit was still too low. That's why. So obviously, this is something that you wouldn't be doing yourself. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you would not be doing this on your own token. You would simply add more BNB in your initial liquidity. But once those two have gone through, we should get our trade button. There we go. So now anybody can buy or sell a token on PooCoin. I'll tell you what I'll do actually, no, I'm going to close the video here. That's as much as we need. I don't want it to be too long. We're already pushing about an hour. So that is how you launch your token. I cannot stress enough how important it is that you've got a minimum of 1 BNB in your initial liquidity, an absolute minimum. You really want 5 or more. If you have less than 1, you're definitely going to get problems with your contract, and it is very likely that your contract will break. Also, people will need crazy slippage to be able to do transaction, and the sal fee tax will go astronomically high if you don't have enough money in your initial liquidity. So what I've done here, 0.1 BNB, that is not acceptable. Got to be a minimum of 1 BNB. So that's how you launch. There are obviously a lot more things that you can do inside your actual token. We've got all of these functions that are available for you that do various different things. Have a look through the PDF guide that I've created to go with the token. You can find that just here. Click on the little link to download the PDF guide. Inside that guide, it explains all of the launch phase, all of the setting up your token, deployment, adding liquidity, and also all of those additional functions in detail, and it answers any questions that you might have about your token. So everything about your token that you need to know is included in there. If you've got a question, it's going to be covered in that guide. However, you can also join us on Telegram where you can ask questions. Click on the button at the top here or down at the bottom to access our Telegram. And in our Telegram group, it's a community group. It's not our token group. You can access our token from there, but it's basically a community of people. We all help each other. Don't ever buy a token that is a contract address that's inside that group, because we talk inside that group a lot about tokens and scams and ways to identify them, ways to improve your skills as an investor, learning Solidity, all of that kind of stuff. There's some really, really great people in there. It's almost like a little bit of a family, and the people in there are incredibly helpful. So don't DM me directly with any questions, just ask them inside that group, because there's a good chance that somebody can answer your question better than I can and much more quickly than I'll be able to. And most of the people inside that group, especially the admins, they understand exactly how all of these things work. And if you've got a question, I'm pretty sure they can help you. So that's all from me. I do want to thank you for choosing Tokens by Gen to create your token. I am doxed so that you know that your token developer is genuine. You know that I'm not going to have any dodgy code in there. I'm not going to be running off with your money. You know that your code is safe. You know that your contract is the very best that it can be. Now, I will say, obviously, when you have a contract, the contract is written in Solidity language. The people that create the Solidity language are always improving it. The contract sits on the blockchain, and the developers of the blockchain, obviously, if they find problems, they'll fix problems and we'd get a fork of the blockchain. But if we go over to your actual contract, let's have a little look. Where are we? If you get to the contract page, you'll see this right here. Now, what this is, we're on version 0.8.16 of Solidity. It's the latest version, and if they find any problems at all with the code that's currently being used in Solidity, you see this little symbol, and they will then tell you what the problems are with that particular version of Solidity, and then they'll bring out a new version of Solidity where they solve that problem. It's kind of like an ongoing situation. The older contracts have more vulnerabilities in them. They're always finding them and fixing them. But just to put your mind at ease, we'll look at the problems that are on this particular contract. You'll see this is the actual error that they've identified. They think it's a medium or high severity situation, but if you click on this, it gives you more information about it. You can read through this. It tells you what that particular situation is, but it doesn't actually apply to anything that's going on inside your contract itself. I did read through this. You might have to go here to find out more information. So who should be concerned? What contracts are affected? Here we go. Look, if your contract doesn't contain any inline assembly block with return or stop statements, you are not affected by this. So it's an issue that they found, but it only applies to certain contracts if if they have these inline assembly blocks with return or stopped. We don't. So this particular bug that they found inside the Solidity language doesn't affect your contract. So you can rest assured that you're completely fine. But over on BSC scan, these things do look a little bit frightening when you first see them. And you will see that when we go up to 0.8.17 version of Solidity, they'll fix that problem, but then they'll probably find a new one and they'll have to come up with a 0.8.18 version of Solidity. It is an ongoing thing. All we can do is use the Solidity language to create the contract and use the latest version of it, because that is the one that is the most secure. So that's all from me, guys. Once again, thank you so much for choosing Tokens by Gen. I hope that your project is a tremendous success. By all means, pop on over to our Telegram group and join our community. See you soon. Take care. Bye.